Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cowboy Survival. I'm Richard, and what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at the $12.99 hatchet that you can get down at Harbor Freight. Pretty nice item. It's a 1 1/4 pound hatchet. Comes with a hickory handle, solid steel head. We're going to take a look at this thing. Other people have had videos where they modified it, and we're going to do some of the same stuff. We're going to do some of our own modifications that perhaps you haven't seen before. So remember, if you like this video today, make sure and subscribe to the channel. Make sure and click that like button, and also click that notification bell so that when we put out other videos, you'll be sure and get them. So with that, let's just get into the video. Before we actually start modifying this hatchet, I want to take a look at the hatchet itself really closely so we can see what it is we're going to be doing with it. Now, first of all, it's got this nice hickory handle on it. The finish on it isn't real smooth, so we're going to remove this finish. We're going to shave this down a little bit and refinish it really nice and smooth. Now, I'm going to put a hole in down here so I can attach a lanyard. In addition, I'm going to reshape the base of this handle. Up in here, it fits my hand pretty well, but I don't have really big hands. So down in here, it doesn't fit my hand really well. I want to shave this down just a little bit to fit my hand personally a little bit better. So we'll be doing that to it. Up in here, I'm going to be putting some protection on this to protect it so that when I miss, when I'm chopping with something and hit the handle here, which is often happens a lot of times when you're chopping, I won't damage the handle. I'm going to put some cushioning in this, and it's going to be a surprise how I'm going to do that. Now the head itself is going to have to be worked on. I'm going to grind all of this down, make it nice and shiny, and then blue the head. In addition, I'm going to shave this. That's not real flat back here. I want to make it nice and flat so it'll be a nice hammerhead if I'm needing to use it. Now the edge itself is pretty poor on it right now. It doesn't have an edge at all. I can go back and forth and press hard. Not going to cut me. It's not a good sharp edge at all. Now I want to make the edge sharp, but I'm not looking to make it razor sharp. I'm wanting to turn this into a good wood chopping and wood splitting hatchet, which means I've got to have an angle on this blade that's about 20 to 30 degrees. So I'm going to have to do some good grinding on this. Plus I'm going to have to put a better, wider edge on this than is on there currently. That edge just is not going to do. Now the axe hatchet is hung pretty well. On the top it's got a little bit of a gap right in here, right just above my thumbnail, but not much of one that you really notice. You can't even feel the gap, to be honest with you. Barely feel it. Underneath, it's hung really well. There's no gappage at all between the front and the back or the sides of the handle where it goes into the eye of the hatchet. So I'm not worried about this thing coming loose over time. I think it's in there nice and solid. So that's the things we're going to be doing to this hatchet. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's just get into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of grinding down the axe head. Okay, well I've got the hatchet clamped down to my table. The next thing I'm going to do is I've got my grinder, and we're going to start grinding away at this head. So for safety, I have my gloves on. I'm also going to be wearing goggles for this because I don't want sparks to fly up and damage my new glasses. It's a little chilly out here today, but it should be a good day for doing some work. So next thing is going to happen, it's going to get really loud, and I'm going to start working on this thing. So it's coming along really well. You can see that the black is coming off. I'm getting the metal polished. I'm starting to work down the edge on that blade to get a better edge on it. And so I'm just going to keep working, and then we'll come back and see as I do the other side. So most of the grinding is done on this. I've still got some to do. Then I'm going to have to start working on the edge, and the edge is going to have to be worked on with something more fine than the angle grinder. But I'm going to be working on that and trying to get that blade better. I've got a edge on there now, but it's really rough. It's going to be filed down, and I'm going to have to sand it and really work on it with a different tool. But we're going to get that blade nice and sharp before we're done. So, and that blade is getting a lot sharper than it was to start with. Still got some burrs on it, but I'm going to try to get all those off of there. So I'm going to continue to work on this blade. The edge is getting broader. If you recall before, it was very small edge on it. I'm expanding the edge back this way to try to get a better angle. I'm able to remove a lot of metal with this file, so I'm refining this edge nicely, I think. So at this point, what I need to do is start sanding this, and I'm going to get the sanding process started using my drill and a little sanding wheel. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just simply going to start that, and I'm going to hold this, and I'm just going to start sanding this thing, get all the stuff off of it that I don't want on it. We're going to take off all the lacquer. We're going to try to get in here to these little tight areas. Get that sticker off of there. Okay, so at this point, I have all the lacquer off of this. The next thing I'm going to do is take my own sandpaper. I'm going to start working on this and sanding this down to the point where I like the feel of it in my hand. And that's going to be kind of a lengthy process. Now, the next thing I want to do before I go any further is I'm going to drill a hole right in the handle right here where I can put a lanyard through. So that's my next step. I'm going to start by drilling a pilot hole right about here. And that will have gone all the way through. And it's pretty good size, so I'm going to use that, and we're just going to drill that on through. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a countersink. And you can see my countersink here. And what I'm going to do with my countersink is I'm going to use my countersink to make that hole a little bit more attractive. So I'll do it on both sides. And I'll sand it out. It'll go nice once I get it done. Okay, so we're at the phase now where we're sanding on this thing to get it sanded down to where it's comfortable in my hand. It's getting close, but I still need some work to do on it. So I'm just going to start sanding like crazy on this thing. One of the things I want you to think about, I haven't done the bluing on the blade yet. I'm going to do that right before I do the finishing on the handle. So I'm going to take a little hand torch. I'm going to sort of char this handle a little bit, or scorch it, whatever you want to say. And I want to do the bluing after I do that. So I'm just going to sand for a while, and we'll put this on high speed so you don't have to watch me sand, but I want you to see that I'm actually doing it. So right now I'm using a 60 grit sandpaper. I'm just trying to get it down to the last few points where it's going to be really comfortable on my hand. Okay, I think I've got that down now to about where I like it, where it feels good in my grip. And so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a finer sandpaper and finish this off because it's still just a little rough. This 60 grit sandpaper is not as fine as I would use to finish it. Now I'm sure there are people out there that'll say, oh, there's a lot more efficient way to shape that than to use a sandpaper, but I kind of like doing it by hand and you know, just put some elbow grease into it. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna get some finer grit sandpaper and we're gonna try that. So I now have my 220 grit sandpaper and I'm gonna take it and I'm going to try to make this a lot smoother to the touch before I put the finishes on it. I'm gonna get fussed at by my wife because I'm getting sawdust all over my pants. Man, that's pretty smooth right there. So I think I've got the handle down to where I need it, so I can take the torch to it next and sort of put some torching on here. I don't know what you call it, sort of scorch it a little bit to give some color to it, and then I'm gonna finish it with a polyurethane finish that my father uses when he builds furniture, and my father's a master furniture builder, so I trust his judgment totally. Boy, that's really nice. That feels good. It feels so much better than when I bought it. Man, that's gonna be nice. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're now going to scorch this handle a little bit with this butane torch. And we're just gonna do it lightly just to put some color on the handle. I think that'll make it look a lot better. So let's just see what we can do with this. This should be fun. There it goes. Trying to get some color on it now. Let's flip it over. Kind of warm there. Okay. Well, it brings out the grain in that wood really nicely. Look at that. Boy, that's going to be really nice when I get it done. I think that looks pretty good. So we'll take that, I'll finish that off, then we'll put the polyurethane on it. And I think we got a nice little colored handle there. So what I want to do next is use some bluing on the head of this hatchet to protect it. Now we're going to use the Perma Blue that you can get off of Amazon, and I've got a link to this down in the description below if you want to get yourself some. So we're going to take this. Now what I did is I've already poured some into this cup. Now the reason for that is we don't want to ever put our applicator into the bottle where we're going to be getting the Perma Blue from, because that would contaminate it and would over a very short period of time would inactivate it. It basically would be useless. So we're going to put that aside. And now what we've got is we've got our blue. I've got an applicator, which is just a foam brush. You can use anything you want, really. You can use a cloth, you can use anything, a Q-tip. I'm going to use this brush because it's a pretty good size area. Then what we'll do is we'll wash it off when we've got it to the desired color we want, and then we will oil the blade. Now I'm not real interested in how this looks as much as I'm interested in protecting the blade. Now we're going to go ahead and blue this, and then afterwards I'll probably have to go back and work on the edge a little bit more. So watch the magic as I put this bluing on this. It's going to immediately start working. And you can see what's happening there with that bluing. And again, I'm not too worried about how it's going to look. other side. And you don't worry too much if some drips from one side to the other, because when you go over it later, it's going to hide all that. Not going to see brush strokes. So we're going to let that sit for just a minute. Let it sort of soak in there and do its thing. That's enough. Next, what I'll do is I'll bring the water over, and I will put this in water and use a cloth to clean it off on that. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put this in the water. Simply going to take the cloth and clean that off of there. That water will clean that stuff off really nicely. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to dry this, and I've got a dry rag here, so we're just going to take that and just dry it really well. It doesn't take much, it dries off of there really, really quickly. Move that out of the way. The last step I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that sitting on that rag, is I'm going to get some oil, and I am going to oil that, because it looks kind of dull and black and not really pretty. So you can see it. It's done. It's blued well, but it's not really pretty. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to get just some old vegetable oil. You can use knife oil. You can use anything you want to. Really doesn't really matter. We're going to take this oil and we're just going to oil this, and then we're just going to let it set overnight. Let that oil soak in really, really well. So the next step on this is to take this hatchet that has this bare wood handle that's been sanded down, and I burned it with a hand torch. And we're going to put this Minwax wipe-on poly on it. It's a clear polyurethane finish. It's going to be a real nice finish on this handle. It's going to protect it from the elements, and we just wipe it on. We just put it on a rag and just wipe it on there. You could pour it directly on the wood and then do it if you want to. It doesn't really matter that much. How you apply it, just apply it on there really well and really liberally. And then what we'll do is probably between coats, I'll do some more finishing on this before we do the final video, but I'll probably sand it down, then put another coat, sand it down, put another coat. We'll really get it finished off really, really, really nice. Several coats of this stuff usually works best rather than one coat. And that's all there is to finishing the handle. So I've wrapped the hatchet with blue painter's tape, and now what I'm going to do is put this Flex Seal rubber spray on this to add some additional sealing. Now that's where the leather wrap is going to go, where you see the bare wood. So I'm going to put this rubber on there to do two things. First, it'll add some additional bounce protection in case I should miss on a strike. But in addition, it'll also provide a little water sealant so that if water gets underneath the leather wrap, it won't damage the wood. So let's go ahead and do this. I got one shot at it. We'll try to get it done here without messing anything up. And there you go. So once that dries and cures for about 24 hours, we can come back, take off the tape, and do the leather wrap. What I've done with this is several things already. I took the finish off of the handle. I refinished the handle. I put a hole in the bottom down here that I'm going to use to tie a lanyard. I also ground down the head of this and blued it, and I also put a new edge on it. The next thing I did is I got some of that spray-on rubber, and I put spray-on rubber here, and that's going to serve two purposes. So the first purpose is to protect it. So I'm going to wrap this with this leather lacing. Now the purpose of this leather lacing, of course, is to protect the hatchet from mishits. So when I chop and it misses and it hits the handle, it's going to help protect the handle from mishits. The second purpose is when the moisture inevitably gets underneath this lacing that's going to be around this handle up here, this rubber will help protect the wood itself from the moisture associated with that lacing. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off very simply by putting a loop on this. And so the loop is going to be here, and eventually when we wrap all this, we're going to take this loop and we're going to take the loose edge, we're going to pull this up, and it's actually going to go up inside the underneath the lacing, and you're not even going to see the loop itself or the end, which is really kind of cool the way that works. And you can see that demonstrated a lot of times with 550 paracord, only we're not going to use 550 paracord. We're going to use this leather lacing just because I think this will look a whole lot cooler when we're done. So we're going to start. Okay, so I think that's enough. And you can see I've done this. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring this, I'm going to put this through this loop. Now, and I'm going to hold it nice and tight. When I pull on this loose end up here near the top, it's going to pull that loop all the way through that. And it's going to pull that loop up underneath this rawhide, just the same way it does when you see people do this with paracord. So you can see how that pulled that right up there. You can see it, but it's pulled it right up. Now I'm just going to pull it. It's going to pull this rawhide, hopefully, really, really tight. There it goes. I'm going to cut this off right in here. And there you go. It's all finished and wrapped and ready to finish the rest of this. And it's a nice grip here too, by the way, that leather. So that looks really good on there. I'm really pleased with the way that turned out. And I think we've got a really nice finished wrap on that handle. Well, there you have it. The $12.99 Harbor Freight 1.5 pound hatchet. Started with a plain black blade, plain hickory handle. We ground down the blade, blued it, put a new edge on it. We stripped the finish off of the handle. I sanded and reshaped that handle till it's really smooth. I finished it with a wipe-on poly from Minwax. I then put a leather wrap up here at the top that has an underlay of rubber spray on it, remember? So this will protect it from mishits. I then put a pole in the bottom, attached a lanyard using a snake knot. Now, for the leather wrap, I've got a separate video that's linked below in the description, so if you want to see exactly how I did that, you can see it. For the wrap, or the lanyard down here at the bottom, I've got a snake knot on it, and I've got a separate video that I've also linked for you down in the description if you want to see that. This was a really great, fun project. I've never done anything like this before, and I think it turned out pretty nice. Went from a plain Jane hatchet to one that I think is pretty cool for taking on the trail. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember, stay safe, stay strong, have a blessed day. We'll see you real soon on Cowboy Survival.